just want to complete some housekeeping work. What's the next session?
So next session will be on 23rd, which is Wednesday, given 24th is Thursday. We thought we'll have it on Wednesday next week. The session will be on SaaS. Piyush from Vertex will be taking the session along with Gagan from India Quotient as well. So the market sizing session, which was earlier scheduled for Wednesday, we've pushed that to sometime in Jan. So I'll circulate a revised schedule along with the dates.
And we won't be having anything on 30th?
We won't be having anything on 30th. So most participants are, I think, unavailable on 30th. So after 23rd, we will have the next session on the 7th of Jan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So only founders are staying back in Bangalore. Everybody else is staying for holiday. So, Ankush, welcome. Guys, it's a pleasure and great joy to welcome Ankush here. When Madhukar and I started India Quotient, one of our goals was that, why can't Indian founders build a Facebook from India? And it's exactly the question that, Ankush poses to investors and onlookers to the world. Why can't? And so Ankush, it's been a long journey. Welcome on board. It's a privilege to present you to the analysts. I think this is probably one of the spaces which sort of, nobody thought will become a mainstream space today. Right? I think there have been like at least 50 social media and content investments that have happened in India since ShareChat. So Ankush, just tell me if you could give your background, how did you get into this? And why did you choose to build a social network?
Sure. Thanks, Anand, for having me here. Yeah, so this was not planned. So we didn't plan to start a social network, but we were always trying out different ideas. Me, Farid, Bhanu, the three of us, we met in 2012 in IIT Kanpur, and we started working together from our hostel rooms, and we probably built 14 products before we ended up with ShareChat. So the company's official name is Mohalla Tech, and the reason for that is Mohalla was our first product. It was a real estate product competing with housing at that point, and that is also how we met Prateek, the Grab House founder, who played a very pivotal role in our journey. But that's how we sort of met together and started, and we kept like building different products. First one being Mohalla, then we built Food Co, what was a recipe content product. Then we built for the campus, we built a game, a Street View game. Then for the Delhi Police, we built a data analytics platform. So we've done like many different things. And before we were doing ShareChat, we were building a product called Opinio from your office in Mumbai. Those were really fun days when we used to sit in. We used to work in your office and then sleep in Grab House's office.
During the day, I believe. You used to sleep in the day and work in the night.
Yeah, so we almost had during this time Google had released a new feature, time to go to office. So it was all like upside down for us because we used to work all night and sleep all day, and eat up all the food at Grab House office. So those were fun days. And eventually, while working on that, we stumbled upon this very unique behavior of people dying to get into WhatsApp groups for some reason in India. And within WhatsApp groups, they will keep sharing content, having a discussion, and doing like almost everything that we do on the internet through different websites and apps, they were doing through WhatsApp groups. And we delved deeper into that behavior, and we also got a bunch of ideas around you by understanding that behavior. How do you get content, growth hack your way into getting a supply of content and satisfying the need of this audience? So it happened very, I would say, in an unplanned way, but we did end up hitting this audience in the use case, and then we took it from there.
Okay. I also privileged to present my partner Madhukar here. Madhukar, you are the unlikely board member for a company like ShareChat, right? I mean, if you can tell us your experience in social media before you funded ShareChat, and what expertise did you bring in managing a social media company as a board member, evaluating and all of that? It'll be good to know. Because today, frankly, any social media founder who starts a company will first come to meet Madhukar at least for a coffee before starting a social media company in India. But tell us where you were in 7 years ago, or like what, 6 years ago? Six
Yeah,
or what? How 5.5 years ago, right?
7 years. Actually, hi guys. I'm Madhukar, right? And so when we started India Quotient in 2012, like Anand told, that our ambition was to invest in a company because Facebook had listed in 2011-12, right? Uh, and we were very envious of the fact that we don't have anything like that in India. So we said that now Indian entrepreneurs, they are ambitious, and why will they not build a social media company? And India has so many.
Madhukar, our point is that was this because of your experience as a product manager in Google? Why did you have this? That is what you want.
I have zero experience in working in any company as such, right? So all my life I have only given money. Earlier I used to give grants. Then I came in investing. So I have zero experience in product management, zero experience in tech, zero experience in anything else also. So it had nothing to do with all of that. I think it was more about the user behavior and some amount of ambition that India should have something like that. So in fact, in 2012, when we started IQ, the first thing we said that we'll do something in social media. So interestingly, ShareChat was not our first investment in social media space, right? So we actually invested in another company. In those days, mobile was still not there, and even if it was there for with very few people, and internet was not real time as internet is today. Like today, we have on our mobile phones, we are always online. In those days, we used to be online for like 10-15 minutes, and then we'll shut down the data connection, and then again on it to check the mails and so on and so forth. So we invested in a company which was trying to build a community of common interest groups, right? So it was called Wishbug, right? So it was like you have a bucket list of 10, 12 things you want to do in your life in the next 5-7 years. And you find similar people who have the similar wish list. And then you follow each other, share content and so on and so forth. And that's where we saw that the desire of the people was there to have participate in something like that, and the talent was also there, which was thinking about these things and thinking about similar this kind of companies. So unfortunately, that company didn't go a long way, but it taught us a lot of things.
A year before.
Sorry.
In fact, a year before ShareChat, we also funded Roposo.
Yeah, and then we of course funded Roposo.
Started as a desktop.
Yeah. So Roposo was
so we had some idea. Of course, Roposo had.
Anand, you are not there.
Yeah, I think there is a signal problem. Madhukar, carry on.
Yeah. So
maybe quickly you want to pass it on to.
Yeah, I'll pass it on to Ankush. So one thing which we saw that in Wishbug was that people were engaging, and that gave us confidence to do more of such kind of deals. And one day when Ankush, Farid, and Bhanu walked in my office in 2014, I think June, and they had a idea of building a secret, Indian secret with context, right? And that's where I said that you guys are great guys to build a social network for India. Why don't you come and sit in my office, and we will think and probably do something together, and probably will fund you also, right? And that's how Ankush and Bhanu and Farid came to our office, and then they spent 6 months with us. They tried a lot of things, as Ankush said. So it was Opinio. Sometimes we were building keyboard for regional languages and whatnot, right? And eventually they stumbled upon the value proposition.
Okay, so this lengthy story and background is to essentially tell you that neither Madhukar and nor I have any clue about product market fit. And mostly wherever we've invested, the companies were like 2-3 years away from product market fit. So I think we are as eager to hear from Ankush about what product market fit is as you guys. So over to you, Ankush.
Yeah. So yeah, I when I heard about that, I have to talk about how to get PMF. I thought probably there's a lot of gyan already on the internet, and there are like more experienced people than me who have seen many products. What I can like the way the like where I can add value is probably I think our story of getting to a PMF is a very good example of how do you, in a structured way, get to a product market fit. And in the hindsight, when I look at it and I sort of think it in that fashion, I think it's a very classical example of how to do it. So therefore, I think if I thought that is probably the best way I could share how do you get to a PMF. So I'll quickly share my screen.
Guys, Ankush has generously agreed to share some slides from his own pitch deck. So it'll be interesting for all of us to see the data.
Yeah, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, so as I said, a lot of Gyan. You should go to Twitter, follow a lot of such kind of people, and to be very honest, I think Paul Graham essays were very helpful. I think they are sort of the classical text that you can find on startups. Like increasingly, they are sort of now becoming obsolete. Like from at least in our industry, I think a lot of Silicon Valley knowledge is no longer applicable. You probably can learn more from China than US. But these are really good essays to begin with if you are a first time entrepreneur or you want to like get to the 101s of these things. So I'll quickly jump to our story and probably take you through what Madhukar mentioned about our different products and how it took shape. But I'll start from the point where we discovered this audience and then take you through the three product versions, the three major pivots we did to finally hit our PMF, which was a content feed that you see today on ShareChat. So this is one of our first logos. As you can imagine, these are like three not even graduates who are thinking if the product is ShareChat, how should the logo be? So this is like as logical as it can get. We've come a long way from this, but this was the first logo that we came up with.
This is an engineer's logo.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is, I believe, November 2014 when we were building Opinio, and we were trying to get traffic. It was majorly a web product because it was about debates and discussions. So we were trying to get traffic back to the debating app, and we were running a debate. I think Sachin versus Virat or something like a cricket debate where I was still in my college hostel at that point, and I was trying to join all the public Facebook groups of Sachin fan club and trying to spam the link that come support your favorite player. There's a debate going on, and that is where I saw this on the left. The post that you see is an actual post from a Sachin fan club, where so the post is nothing but a WhatsApp logo and Sachin's photo. Now, to a layman, you can't make sense out of it. Like, what are they trying to do? But surprisingly, about 50,000 people had commented below this post on that Facebook group, and publicly they had put their phone numbers. Now, this is a very interesting thing that why would anybody put their phone number in a public Facebook group? But that was the case, and therefore we got curious, and I had then written a script to scrape about 1,000 phone numbers and put that in my contact list and make 10 WhatsApp groups. So at like those days, WhatsApp had a limit of 100 members per group. So I made 10 WhatsApp group of 100 members each and named them around Sachin video, Sachin photo, and all of that. And after making those groups, I just kept my phone and went down for having lunch. Those were like hostel days, so you had to go lunch, otherwise you have to spend money on the canteen. So when I did that, I spent an hour roaming around, having lunch. I came back, and in my room was my phone, besides my laptop, constantly beeping with notifications. Ting, 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 wo baje pada hai. I pick up the phone and I see 500 messages in each group that I had just formed of 100 random strangers from the internet. And when you open each group, you will find people sharing photos, randomly videos. There'll be like a content transaction happening. A guy would say, "Ki bhai Sharjah kab ki video bhej," and the other guy would respond within like a minute, sharing the exact same video. So they were not using YouTube, Google to find content. They were using WhatsApp to do everything. Then we delve deeper into trying to understand who are these people who are using ShareChat, who are using doing this
I
kind of
just
behavior.
want to make one comment.
Yeah.
Since this revelation from ShareChat, our team at India Quotient has been using the existence of WhatsApp behavior as an idea validation for any paper plan that we do. Right? So we say here, don't build your prototype, that's okay, but show me what is the equivalent in WhatsApp. Right? Is it working on WhatsApp? And the logic is that, like Ankush said, a very simple sentence. For most people, internet is WhatsApp, and whatever they do on internet, they actually do only on WhatsApp. They don't have much of internet. Even today, they don't have a lot of internet footprint outside WhatsApp. So all the use cases of variety of use cases actually you can validate from just WhatsApp.
Yeah, that's very true. Even now, I think it is still WhatsApp is serving a lot of use cases for which probably it's not the best product.
Yeah.
And as the market deepens and people figure out use cases, I'm sure a lot of other use cases will also get unbundled. Like this content use case was sort of taken away by ShareChat. There would be other use cases which will be unbundled from WhatsApp.
Absolutely. Carry on.
Yeah. So basis this, we then like even delve deeper, like what are the other kind of groups that exist on WhatsApp? How do these users interact? So we found like fan clubs, we found CA students. So there was a community of CA students on WhatsApp. There was a cricket in power, again, a cricket fan club. There were, again, so there are different communities and groups that were getting formed on WhatsApp. And people were like from conversations to sharing content to having just viral WhatsApp forwards being aggregated. There were like a bunch of things which were happening in these WhatsApp groups, in these public WhatsApp groups. So with this thesis, we sort of came up with the first version of ShareChat that these are very, very new internet users. So again, one more very, very interesting feature was that in my contact page on WhatsApp, they were my friends from IIT Kanpur, and they were my friends from my hometown in Delhi. And they were having like a decent DP and a name, proper name, like a normal how you would form a WhatsApp profile. But these users had a very unique way of putting up a profile. So their DP would be a very badly photoshopped picture. So they would have like a picture with Modi ji, like gale mein hath dale hue, and you can make out it's a bad Photoshop. And the name would be like capital small, emoji, capital small. And these are not kids. This is how I behaved when I was on Orkut and High Five in my teenage. But these are 20-year-old, 30-year-old men from tier 2, tier 3 town of India. So the way they perceived internet was very different. They might be 25 years biologically, but on the internet, they behave like teenagers. So we figured that it's a very unique audience. It is hungry about meeting new people, finding new content, having conversations, forming communities. Therefore, we thought we would probably build like a discoverable WhatsApp group product. That was the initial simple idea. We will have chat rooms, public chat rooms, discoverable on a feed. You come, you open a Sachin fan club, and you can see in a chat UX, you can see a group of people. So that is what we built. This is December 2014, the first version of ShareChat that we launched. Now, what we figured was that a typical chat room, if you're a new user on this version of ShareChat, you click on a chat room, you will see hi, a photo, hi. So the way it worked is if it's a Deepika Padukone fan club and a new user enters, he will say there are 5 highs. So he will naturally say hi, but there's nobody online at that point. So he will drop off. Then a new guy will come, he'll again say 6 highs, then he'll put a hi. Even if there is, let's say, a liquidity at that point where 3 people are online, you will have some conversation, but a new guy will come and say hi. So it is really, really hard to make strangers have meaningful conversations. on a new product. So we figured that conversations are probably hard to pull off. We also saw on WhatsApp, the groups which had good conversations were not purely public. They had some kind of privateness to them. For example, they were like people of the same locality or college, which led to having meaningful conversations. But what we saw was that this behavior of somebody uploading Deepika Padukone was really helpful, because a lot of folks, like about 20 to 30% of the user base, who was super engaged in terms of retention and other actions, was using it to download the photos. So at least one use case we figured was working really well. So we thought that let's cut out the conversation part of it. Let's only focus on like a one-to-one chatbot kind of a mechanism, because we still wanted to retain the chat UX. So we figured these are very new internet users. For them, WhatsApp is the internet. We do not want to do away with the chat UX. So chat UX ke andar hi we will give content, we will get news, information, services, and all of that. And that is when we pivoted. And this is July 2015, when we do the first pivot we do, and we get to a public chatbots for content, news, services, all of that. So you would have, for example, you would have a chatbot on, just I think the example here is Adbhut Jagain. So you would have amazing places chatbot. You go into the chatbot. In Hindi, it will ask you that the world is beautiful. Do you want more photos? Do you want photos of the world? You will say yes. It will send you a good wallpaper or a photo of a scenery. Then it will ask, do you want more? You will say yes. Then you will get one more photo, and that is how this chatbot goes. So this is a simple content chatbot, but we also built some more complicated chatbots, because we were engineers and we thought, if we have built chatbots, we have to make sure it can do a lot of powerful things so that we can pitch NLP and AI to the VCs. So we built features like, you tell us your requirements of what you do in a day, and we will recommend you the best smartphone in your budget. So we will take a bunch of parameters, ask you questions, and then recommend a best smartphone basis your criteria. We also built other very, very smart chatbot services. What we discovered, nobody was interested in those things. Everyone just wanted Deepika Padukone photos, amazing photos, jokes, shairi, and the way they were getting, and it feels really stupid right now. If you want joke, you would come to ShareChat, you will open the jokes chatbot. The chatbot will say, do you want joke? You will say yes. It will send you a joke. Then it will ask, do you want more joke? You will say yes. Then it will give you one more joke. And that is how people, and that was the core use case of the product. The most engaged people just came to that joke chatbot and kept asking for jokes. And nobody used the smart services we had built and all of that, but people only wanted that. So that was the first thing that people really wanted. The other thing was that we also were trying with shareability, because we figured a lot of people want to share content back to WhatsApp. So WhatsApp sharing was probably the most common action for people in the content chatbots. The third very interesting learning we got was, and this we didn't figure in the last version, was we had English as an option in the language screen for this version. And a majority of the users were actually picking English, but their engagement within the app was very, very low. Whereas the guys who were picking Hindi, Marathi, or we had 4 languages, I think, one of the 4 languages, they were having super high engagement. Now, again, out of curiosity, we tried to call up or WhatsApp these guys who were picking English as to why they did not like the app in English. And to a surprise, none of these guys would respond beyond hi. So we would say hi, they would say hi, and we will start in English, because if you are an English user on ShareChat, we expect you to talk in English, at least basic English on WhatsApp. But these guys could not go beyond hi and how are you. The only reason they were picking English was, one, it was aspirational, and they had a lot of trust. So every single non-English app before us was a scam on Play Store. And they had these, on the Play Store review, they had the term called fake apps. So they were apps which were MLM apps, which were like giving you false hope of jobs and all of that. All the quality apps that they had used were all in English. So there was an inherent bias in the user base that you do not want to pick non-English as an option. So there was one aspiration, people feel ashamed that why should I use non-English? I know English as a language. So all of these factors actually played a role into why a majority of them were picking English over other languages. So that was the third learning that we had. And what we figured from all of these learnings was, one, again, don't focus on these services. They probably took 80% of our bandwidth to build these services and nobody used them. Just focus on content and what could be the easiest way for people to consume content. It actually is a feed. So we organically came to the conclusion that newsfeed, which was invented by Facebook and ByteDance in different geographies, actually was the most logical solution to serve content to people.
Ankush, just a pause here, right?
Yeah.
You actually removed the two most important things to get funded, right? One, you removed the AI chatbot, so the demonstration of your AI capability, you removed that. You went to a simple feed, and you also removed English language, right?
Yeah.
Because most people wouldn't understand your Hindi jokes; they're too crass, right? Or just didn't know the language, right?
Yeah.
So that was like a sort of a very bold move. Did you have the feeling that while you need to do something with the product, but sort of taking a big risk in terms of getting funded?
Yeah, and I think it played out as well. So I don't think we have your conventional investors on our cap table for this very reason, that not many people believe that this will have any future, the thing that we were building.
Yeah, because they couldn't understand.
Yeah.
The content, the language, the content they just couldn't understand.
And that is why we didn't get any good competition in the first 3 years, because it was so unsexy. Nobody was willing to copy and raise capital on this idea. Whereas in India, if you get a seed and Series A, you probably have 5 copycats, and every top VC firm will pick up player, and that's how the race will go. In our case, that didn't happen.
Very interesting. This was a good hack, actually.
So this was the first pivot. By this time, I think we were already looking at our seed round, because we were running out of cash that we had raised from India Quotient. And this is the second pivot in October 2015, which again we learned that we need to remove English. So we removed English absolutely from the app and just focused on having shareable content in a feed on the platform. This screenshot is still like from an year after that, but the first version was nothing but a simple feed with shareable content. And the first feed algo we had was just rank content by share upon views. It's a very simple logic, simple content. To fill that supply, we had to do a lot of growth hacking, and that's a separate story where we had to build WhatsApp bots to scrape content. But this particular version just massively changed all the metrics that we had. So our sharing per DAU became 5x from our previous version. Our retention, D7 retention became double. Our sessions per DAU became about 3x. So every single metric that we cared about just increased manifold once we launched this app. And there was also this thesis that we had that we will need to have organic viral loops. Otherwise, it's really hard to keep on raising capital and grow this product. So therefore, sharing became an important part of the product for the same reason that when people share content from ShareChat to WhatsApp, we put attributions, we put links, and that is how we get installs back. So that was also a part of the thesis why this product is the product we would want to pivot to. And this is October 2015. About a month after this, we also raised our next round of funding, and we started growing massively. So we got the hockey stick which every VC wants to see after we had hit this product market fit.
So
This is a real graph, right, Ankush?
Yeah, it's a real.
This is not a theoretical J-curve.
No, it's a real graph. It's real DAUs of ShareChat.
Ankush, I have a question, right? So for most of the companies which are product companies, right, and which don't have a service element, right? Most of the times we hear a lot that why don't you talk to your customers? Why don't you talk to your customers? Now, in hindsight, don't you think that if you had picked up the phone and talked to 10 people, that whether you want a feed, whether you want a chat bot, whether you want this, whether you want that, and why waste 1 year doing this, right? So I would want to love to hear your comment on this, right? Because I'm sure you must have tried to do that also, right? And and uh, and how do you go about discovering this based on thesis that you build something, look at the data, come to a conclusion, reiterate, right? While everything can be theoretically asked, right?
No, so I think like a lot of the fundamental product changes that you would need to do to get to PMF probably would not come from direct feedback. But so for example, in our case, if we were at let's say this stage, and we did a feedback on users, I don't think they would have come up with these problems that we had said. Although they might have come up with things like कि joke अच्छे नहीं है. So their problem would be कि joke अच्छे नहीं है. So they would have a very sort of
No, it's
simple
a
problem.
very interesting point, Ankush. So at this point, if somebody from a VC firm was doing independent research and asking people on whether they want English content, everybody would have said yes,
Yeah.
right? Whereas you saw the complete opposite. So people say yes, but they don't know English and they don't want English content. They say yes because of social compulsion. So very interesting.
So I don't think you can never take user feedback on face value.
Then why talk to customers? Why everyone says talk to customers, talk to customers, talk to customers? Because in certain cases it does work, right? If, for example, a SaaS company or an enterprise.
Madhukar, not necessarily, right? This is the first big learning that I got from Steve Jobs' biography, right? And he's like, customers, how will they know? I mean, unless you give them something, they will never know. So yeah, I think you're right in terms of incremental features. Once you have a loyal set of customers, maybe the next additional feature you can ask them, but a new product you can't actually get feedback and build.
Yeah, so I think a targeted customer review can help you iteratively get to the next incremental gain.
Yeah.
But if you like, these are like fundamental pivots to the company. These cannot be like, you can never reach here or to this conclusion if you talk to customers.
So Anand, did you speak to any customers? Because I didn't.
No, I was getting enough data to see, right? So no. I definitely believe that we had to discover consumer behavior here, because while the outside world always believed that WhatsApp is for chatting, I still think that even today, most people haven't even typed a full sentence in WhatsApp, even till today, right? They haven't completed a full paragraph. Paragraph will be like less than 1% people would have written a paragraph. A full sentence would be like maybe less than 5%. So I think and these things will probably come from a data that a company will give. Right? I mean, it's very difficult to ask these things to people. When you ask people, like, what do you do with WhatsApp? I actually communicate. I type to people. Right? I mean, that's what they'll say. I chat, but actually they don't chat. They just post a good morning message. Right?
So Anand, to summarize, we can say that because this is a group of VC analysts and VC associates, right? Would it be fair to summarize it and say that a lot of product-driven companies, data is the right way to try to gauge the product market fit rather than trying to speak to the customers and try to understand if they need product or not?
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, to paraphrase you, it looks ugly but grows like weed, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, Ankush, you can move ahead.
Yeah. So I think I just wanted to surface this and sort of give a summary of how we came to the MVP and what is sort of the framework that we PMF, and what is the framework that we thought when we were doing it. So again, we started with a very simple hypothesis: Indians need content. So we defined a TG and we figured that they are consuming content on WhatsApp. It is not very discoverable. Therefore, we will build a product which will help them discover content on this new app. And we quickly built an MVP. So this was again one of the strengths for us as a company, that we were really quick in building products and pivoting. So if you are, especially in our industry, if you see like the top guys, be it ByteDance or Facebook, the strength is that they move at lightning speed, and you need that skill if you are in that industry. So I think that worked in our favor. Then when we launched the first product, I think it is, so a lot of I would say conventional product people will just see the product and then find how do I grow it, which is the absolute wrong thing to do. So you should never put fuel, never try to grow DAU till you feel that you've hit a PMF. So if you take an example of all our products, so this public chat room product, we could have put money and scaled it, and probably we would have went into a direction which there are a lot of these chat room products today like Yo-Yo and Heygo. Probably we would have built that kind of a product, which we didn't want to build, and we didn't feel those were large outcomes for the company, and they didn't have any sense of PMF at that point. If you look at our first pivot, even this could have become a product, and there are, I think when we were doing this, there was also a Sequoia funded company which is building chatbots, which got eventually acquired. And they're doing fine. Like they pivoted to enterprise and did well. So, but it was not a large outcome. So if you put fuel at the wrong point, you could end up in a very wrong trajectory. So at any point during this time or even before, we could have put more money, raised capital, and then build out something which was wrong. So if you are after a hypothesis, do not put fuel till you believe that you have hit the PMF. And so the first version that you have built, find out the people who really love your product. So you do not want to care about a lot of the people who are just using the app and sort of like it or do not like it. Find the people who absolutely love your product or a feature or a subset of use cases within your app. Those are the people you want to go after. And pivot your product to make sure that you are discovering those use cases upfront and you're only targeting those TG. And the pitfall you can fall in that is you can then form a very niche product out of it, but you would have to be mindful with every pivot that when you do this, is it still a large outcome? So when we build this share chat feed pivot, we still believe this itself is going to be a very large outcome. It is not what we intended to build in the first place. This is not like a public WhatsApp group, discoverable WhatsApp groups, but this is probably what people want and could be a massive outcome from here. So while you narrow your use cases, it does not mean that you become like a very niche player or a very niche use case. So you have to keep that balance in mind. And then like when you keep doing that, you need to keep measuring the metrics and the core use cases on which your hypothesis is based. So when we came up with this hypothesis, we figured that this is about content consumption and sharing to WhatsApp because we want that sharing loop. So therefore, we focus for the first, I think, 2 years of our journey, share by DAU was the most important metric. And we just maniacally cared about only this metric, that is our share by DAU increasing with every product change, every algo change or not. So once you hit the PMF, you would know what you want to focus on, and then you keep iteratively improving on that metric. But before that, till you have not hit the PMF, don't put fuel, figure out what could be the next best way to pivot your product to better cater to the users who love your product already. So that's probably how I would summarize the process of getting to a PMF. Again, treat this as a very generic framework. Like there can never be a science to finding a PMF. It'll always be different. Sometimes you are near PMF and you find your competitor copying you and raising a large amount of capital. You have to take a subjective call. Should I be a very Puritan product manager, or should I be get the money somehow and buy myself time? So it is a very sort of generic framework. So take it at your own discretion. But I think this is a good way to think, how do you get to a PMF? And one of the books which helped me during this time was this 4 Steps to Epiphany. So if anyone is interested, you can probably read this book. I think that is all I had.
Cool.
I think we can take...
Thanks, Ankush. This was fabulous, Ankush. So Ankush, tell us more about, what kind of numbers crunching that, some of the VCs you interacted with, right? Particularly the ones who passed, right? And they were also taking a number-based decision, right? At some point.
Not
so,
really.
Give us some anecdotes or examples of, where you thought that people were misreading your ability to build a large company here.
I think most of the people were very biased by the UI. For some reason, I still don't understand why people care so much about the UI of the app. And you would go to these guys who would have they would have iPhone, so they would have to take our phone or get one of their colleagues' Android phone, download the app, and उनका मुंह उतर जाएगा कि ये क्या है. And they would and the first version of ShareChat was actually just good morning and chutkule. There was nothing more. That was the most shareable content in India at that point.
So this was a very classical problem of, what they say in the Silicon Valley, that you invest in products that you love, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, it can be like far from the truth when you're investing in India, right? I mean, because all of us actually use Silicon Valley products, whereas most other people in India, the 95% of the population doesn't understand or care about those kind of nuances or that kind of taste, right?
Yeah. So I think that was probably the biggest funnel drop happened with our UI.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had a discussion with Madhukar, I remember, on Madhukar saying that, boss, you need a good UI. I said, but that doesn't matter. He said it matters to fundraise. That was a very true statement, but our users couldn't care less. Again, their feedback was, we want good chutkule, we want good morning. And that is what we were like putting all our energies on. How do we rank better? How do we get a better supply? UI was probably the last of our concern. And even today, I think we get that feedback that you probably don't give enough love to your UI and design sort of aspect.
So on my face, I was told by at least 3 VCs, I will not name them, that this is like kachada. Right, the word used was kachada.
I think also there were some racist comments like, Indians can't build good products. Right? And I think we've come a long way now, thankfully. And in last few years, I haven't heard that comment. But in those days, it's like Indians can't design good products, right? Particularly after seeing ShareChat. so which is actually the point you proved the other way around. Right? You actually proved that Indians can design, right? Except that what's needed in India might be different, right? And what the users
might be designing a product is probably like UI is like just the surface level of it. Like there's much more to designing a product.
So, Ankush, tell us your experience about dealing with VCs from China, right? And what was different in their approach, and why did they get what most people from India or Silicon Valley didn't get?
Yeah, so I think during our Series B, before our Series B, we had only interacted with the Indian folks. But for our Series B, we first went to Sand Hill Road because we were aspirational and our Wi-Fi password was A16Z soon. So we had been rejected by YC twice. So we were like, we need to see what
we can't score YC, then we at least have to score A16Z.
Yeah. We actually got YC in that trip, but we didn't take. So we did get.
Yeah. You got, because of a poor UI, you got YC in Series B, I believe.
Maybe, but we went to Sand Hill Road and we figured that I think the reason why you started this conversation by saying why did we start social media? It's been a graveyard. The first realization we had of that fact was when we visited Sand Hill Road, and every single VC just said FB will kill you. Like why would FB not copy you?
Yeah.
That is the single response. Nobody wanted to go deep into the data, understand the problem statement. Nobody cared. Yeah. Probably one or two of them even asked for data pack. Everyone else just said that it won't work. FB will kill you. And we came back from that trip not very excited. The only person I think which got excited was Jim Gates, the guy who funded WhatsApp. He was very keen, but he said we can't do it. The India team would do. Sequoia India team would do. But he's probably the only guy we respected that who got the pitch right. And then we came back, and at that point we then started looking eastwards, and we met Xiaomi and a few other folks. And I think those were very, very like those folks were. I think they also had a bias because they could not understand the language or like feel India. Like in Silicon Valley, you still have a lot of desis who can read Hindi.
They look at the UI. Yeah. So they have to look at the data only.
Yeah, they had no option but to look at the data. So I think that played well for us because they were like, China mein we have WeChat, Weibo, Toutiao, all of that. India mein it should be also the similar way, and the data looks solid. So it made logical sense to invest.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I think Ankush, you are right. Not only Shattered was labeled as the guys who will be killed by Facebook. Madhukar was labeled as the guy who funds those kind of companies. so his
You know,
reputation
I
was really not so good for a few years after Shattered.
so when they were raising Series B, I was slightly involved in Clip, but I had a few conversations with Farid and Ankush, and I said, "Why are you guys going to US? Book a trip, go to Beijing, go get Aventus, ask them to take you to China, right? Because the Chinese were really coming to India, and they were very aggressive about content companies."
Yeah. No, I think it's very interesting. I think Ankush is right. A little bit of knowledge of Hindi as a language or other Indian languages, but complete distancing culturally. But actually, that was the negative actually. And I think it's not just Silicon Valley. People who live in Bangalore or Bombay are as far away from real Indian users. I think in terms of maybe all of us in Bangalore also can read the languages, but won't appreciate the content or the use case.
So Ankush, I would like to ask you to throw some light on when social media companies are getting created, especially now that we all are saying that content companies are getting created in audio, and there will be content vertical communities are getting created, and vertical social content companies are created. How to rightly look at the metrics for the benefit of the analysts and associates who are there, how to basically find out that there is something going on, right? And what are the, like, after Series B also, you guys have grown tremendously, and there have been multiple new things which you have tried. When do you start getting the sense that, yeah, something is working, and how do you basically take your scale decisions to add fuel to that, right? And how to basically spot those opportunities?
Yeah, so I think there are, even within content, there are many different ways in which you could grow and hypothesize a large outcome. And if, for example, if somebody is pitching a vertical community, a very social product where there is one vertical community of, let's say, women or something of that sort, and their entire thesis is based on having strong social connections, then you need to see that is the real value driven by those social connections. So if they have a joint community feed or a follow feed, is that really taking a bulk of their traffic? So this is one thing which, in fact, all Chinese VCs asked me, what percentage of your traffic comes from the follow feed? Because you might claim to be a social network, but if a large percentage of your traffic is not coming from there, you're not actually social, which is not bad. Just that your pitch needs to support that you are just an AI powered content feed. You're not
like a TikTok. Yeah.
So,
and I think you're right, Ankush. I think because of lack of ability to curate properly, for 90% of the world's population, the AI powered feed is much better actually. Self curation by following people to get a better feed is not possible for everybody.
yeah, it depends on the product. So I think in general, AI feeds are taking a larger proportion. Even in China, the social products, it is not that 100% of the feed is driven by follow. So it's not, unlike Twitter, which is, for example, a bulk of the content consumption is follow based. In China, there is probably hardly any product which is so massively dependent on social graph. And a lot of people have moved to partially being AI driven. But yeah, so I think the first fundamental way is, if the thesis is built on social, then you need to see that the core metrics which define your social graph are actually delivering value in the product. And at an overall level, you could see organics and probably D7, D30 retention. All of these are like the top level hygiene metrics. If a guy is at Series B level and the D30 is probably 5%, it's not a product ready yet. You would need to have at least double-digit D30 for you to raise a Series B now. Okay. The other probably good input signals are, if it is really based on network effects, is there a historical evidence of metrics improving just by the volume increasing? So for us, whenever we launched a new language, our D30 retention of that language will automatically improve and double in the next 3 months without us doing anything in the product. So there were real network effects which led to improving metrics as the scale improved in the product. So I think these are a few things which sort of are very pinpointed metrics which tell you if the product is actually working or is it like a marketing powered growth.
Okay, guys, can we open the floor for questions? Anyone? Mohit, I think you to unmute everybody. Yeah, feel free to ask questions like, what is D30? That's a fair question if you don't know.
So I have a question, Ankush. So when you were early and you were deciding on metrics, so suppose you track D30, how did you know that what is the level that you will have to take it? The right number is 30, 40, 50, 60. What is the, and how do you plan that journey? Like you took targets, ki we'll have to improve this maybe by 2%, but and not, why not 5% in that respect?
Yeah, so there is no good answer to it. So if you are, let's say in my shoes, what are the constraints on you? You will have to raise new capital 12 months later, and you need to show some metrics to get that capital, right? That's one constraint. The other constraint could be what is your direct competitor growing at, and therefore you would need to make sure that you remain the market leader, and therefore you have this much amount of growth or DAU when you raise the next capital. But it is always about, so you would always try to incrementally better it. And so we never put our target that we have, that this is our ceiling and we can't go beyond it. We will always try to break our ceiling. We do know, and we have a benchmark that products like ours, which is like Twitter, Pinterest, or Toutiao kind of products, they typically saturate at a D30 of 20%. So we do have that as a benchmark. But when we set our own metrics, we try to see we have to take our DAU to this level. Therefore, our DAU modeling will tell us that D30 needs to go to this level in the next 12 months. And then we build our bets. What are our bets that we will take let's say, a 5 percentage point gap? What are the bets that can take us there? And then you execute. And then you end up with some number. So there is no one number. You will always have to incrementally keep bettering your number. And at some point you will figure out that's your ceiling. There are benchmarks in the market, but I believe India market is less competitive than Chinese market. So we could probably aim higher than 20. Mm-hmm. But I think you just try your best and figure out where you end up.
Very interesting, Ankush. Ankush, there's a lot of talk about North Star metrics, right? It's like a big buzzword now. How important is to figure out what is North Star metric, and how important is to figure that out?
I think North Star metric is, in my opinion, the biggest purpose of having that is to unify your org towards one objective. Mm-hmm. So everyone can then look up to that number and say, are we doing well? Are we not doing well? So in our case, for example, DAU is the North Star metric. If our DAU goes up for whatever reason, people are happy in the company. Mm-hmm. And if you do anything that can contribute to that DAU, you have done something in the company. So I think for that purpose, it is very important to have that North Star. But the real challenge comes is when you have to break that North Star into your bets and your input metrics. And if I add a new content category and then plug it in the feed, my retention will improve, and therefore over 12 months, my DAU will increase. So you will have to come up with a bet, a storyline of how your impact, how your effort will impact the North Star. I think breaking down North Star into real input metrics is the hardest thing. But having a North Star, I think, is helpful to unify the org.
Okay. Super. Guys, anybody else has a question?
Yeah. Hi, Ankush. This is Harsh. So just pardon me if this question sounds lame, but am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned that UX and UI doesn't matter. So I was just thinking, just if I take this content vertical further, just if to for example, job app or a fintech app, given that in nowadays these all app has a content feature for increasing the engagement purposes. Doesn't such platforms would require clean UI and UX, so that these since they are already catering to the tier 2, tier 3 towns, the new age companies. So doesn't that such kind of platform would require good UI and UX, just for increasing the engagement purpose.
Yeah, Ankush, you may have to clarify what you mean by good and bad because I think you were using it sarcastically.
Yeah. No, so having a clean UI that helps your core use case is definitely required. So, for example, in our case, the most important thing when people open ShareChat is they want to consume the content that they prefer, right? So, your feed has to be absolutely clean. When you scroll, the scroll has to be very smooth, and the next content you get should be the one you want. That's the most important part. So any UI that can help improve that core experience is definitely something you should do. When I say that UI doesn't look good, is that we do not put a lot of bells and whistles on top of it. So we believe in our priority order as a company, feed ranking probably is the most important part, and we feel we are still far away from the absolute best we can get to. So we would want to put all our energies first into the feed ranking part, and then you would probably have the content supply part as the second priority. In that priority list, adding bells and whistles is probably at the end. But it doesn't mean that you make a cluttered UI where people can't consume content. So your core function of the app has to be absolutely seamless and smooth. And any UI effort which can improve that, you should absolutely do it.
Good, thanks.
Hi, Ankush. So I just wanted to understand a little bit. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Ankush. So I wanted to understand what were your kind of customer acquisition strategies. You talked about, kind of doing the whole scraping Facebook thing. So any other strategies you tried, any growth hacks, and which one, how did you figure out which one works best for you?
Yeah, so there were a bunch of them, but the most fundamental growth lever that we had was always WhatsApp sharing. And when a user comes to the app, to the point he clicks on share button, goes to WhatsApp, then shares that content to friends, where all his friends will see the content. Maybe if it's an image, you can't forward link, so you will only see a banner. See that banner and download the app. Now there are many steps in between this whole loop. So we spent probably the first year only optimizing every single step. So to give you an example, when the person lands on ShareChat, we would want that person to share. So therefore, the objective is maximize sharing per DAU on that feed. So a team is working day in and day out just to maximize sharing. Step 2 is the person presses a button, shares it to WhatsApp, and you will have a content and probably a link. So the link is not guaranteed because if you forward, the link gets trimmed in WhatsApp. But at least you have a content with a strip which says download ShareChat. Now that strip could be optimized in many different ways. So if it's a Marathi guy sharing a devotional content, we figured that the CTA should be ye Marathi Manus app hai, download kare. So you have to attack the sentiment which will have the highest conversion. So that's again step 2. Then you would probably have like his or her friends will see the content on WhatsApp, read that CTA, and then they will be curious what is ShareChat. Now again, we wanted to make sure that it is a multilingual app. We're not putting English, but the name is still English. The reason we kept ShareChat was we wanted to find the simplest word in these people's vocabulary that they can type on Play Store. Because eventually, to get to the final conversion, they will have to read that and type it in. So that step also needs to be optimized. So therefore, we kept the name ShareChat, and when you type that name, it should come up first on the Play Store. So every single step that you have, you need to make sure it is absolutely optimized. And
That's
this
very
was
cool.
the primary organic viral loop.
Awesome. Thanks. That was very cool.
So, Ankush, one more question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to dive a little deeper into the process of adding new features. Whenever you added new features, did you have any core metric in mind that you would calculate, the results of that core feature add through a metric, or was it only based on customer feedback and if the customers are liking it? Was it subjective? How do you objectify that?
So this is post PMF, right?
Even in the early days when you added new features to reach to PMF?
During the early days, we were making massive changes. So these were not your incremental changes that you could figure out by talking to people. So let's put it this way. When we were on the public chat rooms version of ShareChat, we did talk to people and they told us that bahut jaldi aa raha hai. high. So we then limited the members in the group. Then they said ki image clear nahi aata. Then we did something. So we did incremental things on that particular thesis. But then we figured that this entire thesis is wrong and we have to pivot. Now for that pivot, you cannot talk to people. That has to be a gut driven or even like data backed gut driven sort of decision where you then say this hypothesis of mine was probably wrong for these many reasons and therefore I will now pivot to this. So for the pivots, I think the feedback holds less value. But when you have gotten one thesis and you want to incrementally improve it, the customer feedback is helpful.
Thanks. Hey, Ankush. No, I was wondering on retention. So retention is super important. Otherwise, you're always on a treadmill of acquiring new users, right? So what are some insights you figured on, what can improve retention? Say you want to go from 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20. And I'm sure it's a very different journey for all these stages, but anything you've learned which helps. And also it depends on the app. Some apps are more social driven, therefore there's network effect, but some apps are not that driven. So if you could also generalize it a bit for general content app, that would be very useful.
Yeah, this is probably the hardest question. And this is one question you should ask a founder. How will you improve your retention? So when you think about growing your DAU, you would probably break it down and let's say you're growing your DAU within your defined set of TG. So you're not adding a new set of users. How you would divide that is acquisition and retention. It's primarily a function of these two things. Now, acquisition is still easier to think. There is marketing, there are organic viral loops. It's easier to think and quantify. Improving retention is the most fundamental question. Like if you improve retention, it means at a very core level, people are finding your product more valuable. And every single product will have a different reason why people find it more valuable. So in our case, what we figured, for example, there are a few input metrics which really help our retention. So in the very early days, when we thought about DAU, we figured that improving sharing will have a massive impact on acquisition and also a decent impact on improving retention. So that is why we focus entirely on the share by DAU metric, that if we keep improving that, our DAU will keep improving. At about 1.5 million DAU, we figured that acquisition is becoming less of a lever to take it to further 10 million DAUs. Therefore, we need to shift our focus and get to make sure our retention keeps improving. Now, by that time, we had become a good morning sharing app, and we were sort of in a local maxima, because there is only as much audience which wants to share good morning and chutkule onto WhatsApp. So therefore, we pivoted that we will now look at more engagement metrics, not just sharing. So we looked at share, like, favorites, comments, views, all of that, and use that as a measure of how much people are enjoying our feed. And that led to further increase in retention. That led to actually a drop in organics because we did pivot away from sharing. But at an overall level, retention improved and net the DAU started growing again. So at different stages of the company, you have to figure out if you want to just mathematically grow DAU, what is best. At a mature stage, you have to think what is the true core value that you will improve and therefore have a higher retention. So it is never an easy answer. This is probably the step at which a lot of companies struggle. Like, what do we do to improve retention? It's the most fundamental question out there. And if you want to check how much a founder is knowing about his company, you should definitely ask this question.
Ankush, so what you're saying is that incremental changes will not give you significant jumps in retention, right? So you kept pivoting till you have solved some level of retention, I believe, right?
Yeah. So
you kept making massive changes, and which were more like from your own creativity. And once you got it in the range of, let's say, 20%, and the next 10% was sort of through incremental improvements.
So
did I get it right?
Our public chat rooms version probably had a D30 of 1%. Our chatbots would be, I guess, 1.5. So from 1.5 to 20, you can't incrementally go your way. You need fundamental step jumps to get to a good number. I think our first version of the feed product was, I think, D35% or something. And then after we kept improving our core share by DAU product, we got that 5 to 10, and then we incrementally kept increasing that number. So I think it is a gut call that you believe that this feed product has a lot of juice left, that if I am now at 5, I have a visibility to take it to 10 and therefore and higher beyond that. But if you are at 1 and you can't see a clear path of even taking it to 5 or 10, then you're stuck. So that's again one way of thinking that are you at PMF or not? Because you want a currently working product, but you also want a visibility that you can double the retention in the next 12 months. And you have at least some ideas which seem logical. They might turn out to be bad, but you have a sort of clear vision for the next 12 months that this is how I will focus on this metric or this lever and increase my retention over the next 12, 24 months.
Got it. Thanks.
I think, Ankush, it is also important to bring the third core metric in the mix, right? Which also gives a resemblance or gives a confidence that retention will improve in the future, which is engagement, right? So if the engagement is significant, which is basically coming through data, and you are seeing that the love is great for the product, then by doing improvements on the investment side of the user, that how you can make him committed more, the retention improves, right? And as Ankush said, at larger numbers, a 1% improvement or 2% improvement in retention gives a much more value than improving the acquisition or organic or virality by 1 or 2%. So that's one of the things which was very critical for ShareChat, because engagement was always very high. So we always knew that there is enough room for the retention.
Madhukar, just for the benefit of the audience, exactly which metric are you talking about when you say engagement?
Engagement, it will depend from product to product, but in case of ShareChat, it was like how many likes they are happening, right? So how many times people are basically viewing the one particular content set, right? And are they liking it or not, right? So there were 2 or 3 things which,
I think he mentioned share per DAU.
Yeah, that's share per DAU. Then, but there is engagement like view, right? How many times on one session, how long is that session, right? So are people coming and only looking at 2 jokes and going away, or are they looking at 10 jokes, right? So those kind of numbers also become important.
Okay, fine, guys. Thank you very much. I think if you have a question, take a last one, or else Ankush is a expensive commodity. We will let him go. Yeah, Aditya.
Yeah. Hey, Ankush, I had actually two points I wanted to ask you. So one is we discussed that we have to see what existing behavior is there on WhatsApp that can sort of be converted into a product. So on that, do you have a framework of how we can evaluate what behavior can actually be transferred into another product versus what is something that's, WhatsApp is too big and too important in everyone's workflows that it's sort of going to remain in WhatsApp. So that's one. The second one is your PMF largely sort of came on the back of piggybacking on WhatsApp shares. So is this framework of content in social apps should always use WhatsApp as a strategy to grow, or are there cases where it's sort of detrimental to them?
Yeah, I'll just generalize this. Does a social media always use another social media to grow, right? Something else. Right? So there is some parasitic behavior everywhere, but yeah.
Yeah. So on the first part, I think one good way of understanding how things are happening on WhatsApp is, let's say you want to see how the job search thing is happening on WhatsApp. You just Google like Sarkari Naukri WhatsApp group link. You will find 1,000 WhatsApp groups which are built for that purpose. You see how people behave, and you will probably figure out a very unique thing which you have never seen before. And you take any use case, like even these Matka lottery results, they come on WhatsApp. They don't come anywhere on the internet. So you have a very, very unique set of use cases which are happening on WhatsApp. All your dating, you can find whatever use case you find on internet also happening on WhatsApp. So like, and most of these are driven by public WhatsApp groups. So there are full catalogs of these public WhatsApp groups which are available on different websites. You can Google them and find out. On the second part, again, it is, so for example, we did it because we figured that it's hard to raise money on this product alone. Therefore, we need to have a lot of organic downloads. for the first 3 years, I think in our board meetings, we were heavily focused on what is the organic percentage. So clearly it is a function of a lot of things, but if you can get free growth, then why not have it? So a part of your team should always be focused on getting free growth. And we figured WhatsApp is a great channel. Those were early days of social network. We will anyways not be able to raise capital if everything is paid. So, and it also turned out that sharing to WhatsApp was a core use case of the product. So for us, our organic loop and our core use case turned out to be the same. And therefore it made all the sense for us to do it. But it might turn out that for some people, they don't want to do it or it doesn't make sense. So in that case, you might choose not to do it.
Or for example, if you are extremely well funded like ByteDance, you don't need to do it, right? You don't want to help WhatsApp to increase there.
Yeah, like when we launched Moj, we do have sharing as a part of our feature set of our ML model, but that is not what we are trying to optimize for, because we are fine buying all the traffic. It is a known PMF. That short video is a known PMF. We need to just focus on how do you increase DAU, and we only look at from that lens. Is it worthwhile for our algos to focus on sharing? What is the benefit we can get? We can probably throw in 10% more marketing budget and get the same users. So I think it depends on the situation and the use case of the product.
Okay. Super. Guys, Mridul has a question. Maybe this is the last one. Third time I'm saying the last one. So what would you do as a product guy if you see your product is getting unbundled?
That's an interesting question.
You become a VC, I think. Start angel investing at that point.
I think if you feel that it is going to, if that unbundled product could become big and impact your core experience, then you want to do anything to kill it and use your distribution to sort of scale it before the other guy can do it. So the advantage you have as a large social product is to absorb interesting features, and that is what IG did with stories. So they figured that a lot of content consumption is moving to the stories format. Creation is happening in that particular format, and that is a fundamental risk because they perceive close connection content creation as a very core part of what makes Facebook and IG. Therefore, you need to sort of make sure that you absorb it within your product. So it depends. If it is not core, like if somebody wants to take a very niche topic and make a vertical community out of it, we are fine. Like we will in fact support them. But if somebody is attacking the core part of our product, then we would like fight it.
I think the bigger question actually is that, you know, what do you do if a big tech starts copying your product, right? Which is sort of the biggest problem of what Snapchat has been facing forever. They've been innovating and feeding features to Instagram and others. And of course, you know, everybody is now trying to copy TikTok, and TikTok tried to copy ShareChat with Halo. So I think that is actually a bigger existential question, right? The unbundling question probably is applying to only the really large companies like Facebook and WhatsApp.
Yeah. In that case, you fight or you die.
Yeah.
There's nothing much you can do.
Super. Ankush,
you take investment from them.
I think this is going to be one of the most popular recordings. I think we should share this with founders also. Probably, you know, will be great for them as well. Thanks, Ankush.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. And thanks, guys. This was a good session. Thanks for the questions as well. See you next week on 23rd. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.